Hello and welcome to Off the Record. If you are listening live on Adobe, welcome. Thank you for listening. You can keep up with us at offtherecord.fm, subscribe to us on iTunes or whatever podcast client of choice you use. For all our lovely listeners, offtherecord.fm has show notes, Jesse's Twitter where he tweets about Brooklyn, Hopstop. Twitter actually was around in 2004, and you can find Jesse there loving Hopstop. But regardless, thank you for listening.
You know, just because you can't navigate cities doesn't mean you need to make fun of my superior sense of direction.
The worst part of Manhattan for me is when I get below the numbers. Anywhere where there isn't a number in Manhattan. That's a shout out to you, Alphabet City.
Really, you can't navigate A, B, C, D for all
it's
four
hard,
of those
man.
letters?
I don't know what comes first. What way does it go? Is A west? Is A east? I don't know. I mean, I do know, but like, you know what I'm saying, Jesse. My directional sense for Alphabet City is where Cats is, and I revolve around that.
I'm going to say this.
Okay.
There's no need for you to really know much past Avenue A. Like, I go to Avenue B occasionally, but like, I haven't been to Avenue C or D in like 10 years.
Wait, is there a D?
Yeah, there's a D. I actually once on a date with a girl, I was like, let's go investigate how bad the avenues were. This was in the late 90s, and it was still really bad over there. There's no Avenue E.
Okay, I really didn't know that there was a D. I thought it was just ABC.
Yeah,
wow, D's got to be a dark place, huh?
Yeah, it's all projects.
Wow. Damn. All
But
right.
I took this girl there. You know, I romanced her enough that she's still one of my best friends, and we dated for a year and a half. So I got the smooth moves.
I just feel bad that we got so dark so early about Avenue D. It's really
D's for dark.
Is D just Brooklyn?
No, come on. There's then the FDR, then the East River, then Brooklyn, then Kent Avenue, where you were today.
Okay. Well, that's your history lesson for this week's episode of Off the
Geography
Record.
lessons.
Geography.
God,
thank you.
God.
I'm not a college graduate, so you can't harp on me yet.
Okay.
Okay. So our lovely listeners, there are so many smart ones of you, and you guys all and ladies ask some lovely questions for us, and you do that by tweeting #AskOTR or by emailing us or by asking us questions at our website. And there's so many questions that Jesse and I wanted to answer them and talk to each other and get into politics and humanity and the meaning of life.
It's probably not going to happen.
Okay. Our frequent listener and question asker at Ben Butchnat, and I'll never pronounce that right. Jesse, do you go to music festivals yearly? Do you have a favorite? Actually, I want to just get into a little backstory about this. Jesse, when was the first music festival that you can remember going to?
Probably Lollapalooza.
Really?
Yeah. I went to Lollapalooza when I was like probably 14.
So when you were a youngin, was there just what year was it when you were 14?
That was like one of the first. That was the first like touring one. Like that kind of gave birth to the Warped Tour and all
Right.
that.
I'm not making fun of you, but how old were you when you were like what year was it when you were 14?
Like 94, 92?
So
92.
Back then, there were hardly any festivals, let alone traveling festivals, right?
I think that was the first traveling festival. Was
it
Lollapalooza.
was,
I'm pretty sure.
yeah. So you went to you did not go to Chicago like people do now for Lollapalooza. It came to you.
Yes, it was at Randall's Island in New York.
Oh, God, Randall's Island.
Yeah, not the
I
funnest
spent
place.
many years there playing sports after school. Just so you know.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's where the rich schools play sports.
Well, what I did is my father took me, and then my friends and I were such assholes that we rolled joints in front of him and proceeded to blow it in his face.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I was a horrible kid. Have I ever mentioned that before on the show?
No, not really, honestly.
Yeah, I was the worst kid of all time.
Okay. I was pretty okay. I didn't make my Jewish mom cry too much.
You were an angel sent from heaven compared to how bad I was. I got it all out. You might still freak out when you get out of college and then be turned into this horrible demon.
There's definitely at least a 30% chance.
Yeah, I mean that's a thing that very commonly happens is you don't get the demon out and then all of a sudden you just turn into this horrible person. We've all met the straight edge kid through his true till college. And then
that's me.
He's my age, and then he's quitting drinking to focus on his cocaine habit. True story, friend of mine.
Stop talking about me. So you went to Lollapalooza. Do you remember who was there? Did it have an effect on you?
Sonic Youth was awesome. I went 2 years. I can't tell the difference between, but I saw like Pavement, Sonic Youth, Hole, Superchunk. I saw lots of really cool bands, and it was a lot of fun.
And
You
so,
know?
and so after that, did you start going to festivals frequently, or was it still infrequent and maybe you went to
Sure.
Warped Tour?
Yeah, well, Warped Tour came not far after that. I definitely went to the first few Warped Tours. Saw Limp Bizkit at Warped Tour, because that's the band that stands out.
I mean, I would, I like seriously, one of the most poignant like memories of any artist I have watched at Warped Tour was Blood on the Dance Floor. So like, I imagine in 10 years I'll say that, and that's like Limp Bizkit,
Katy Perry was pretty memorable for me.
Oh yeah, me too. That was my first Warped Tour.
Was that?
Yeah.
Wow. But yeah, I went to festivals as I got. So you have to also remember my next festival experiences, though, is we started doing the more DIY festivals, which is what birthed your festival scene of today. But they were much smaller. Like we'd go to like Michigan Fest, and Michigan Fest would maybe be like 1,000 people showing up to see 30 screamo bands for 2 days or something. And they were a little bit more, like hardcore was back then, a little bit more hard, there'd be workshops on DIY stuff.
Oh, that's cool. I think that sounds like, to me, I don't ever want to go to South by Southwest, but I probably will. But regardless, like those kind of talks and stuff sound interesting to me. Like the panels, that to me sound, and I know.
But we're not talking about panels. We're talking about workshops.
I know. But like that, to me, that's how, as a sellout, that's what I think of it as, because I can actually sell this room out by people speaking to people. It's not DIY.
It is, that part of it's fun.
I assumed the fun part for you was the drinking in Austin, but.
Yeah, well, I partied pretty hard at last year, South by Southwest, but that's a story for another time. But what I was going to say is now those same type of festivals have scaled up, and now it's too much for me. There's too much running around. It's not even me being old, because I have a lot of energy for that on a Brooklyn night. But what it is I need 2 hours to go chill in my bedroom in between.
So, and if you're at a festival all day, they're probably not going to let you bring your like smoothie making machine in, right?
It's true. Now, I can go hang in the band's van or tour bus, which I often do. Like at Warped Tour, like I'm basically not going unless somebody's letting me chill on their tour bus for a few hours and hang.
Is this where I note to our listeners that while Jesse sounds like an asshole, he doesn't necessarily mean to sound like one right now?
I'm trying to discuss how there's too much rock in a day for me at a festival. I'm not trying to sound like an asshole and sound like the cool guy. I'm saying I can't listen to music that loud all day because it exhausts me, because I listen to music for 10 to 14 hours a day.
Being a producer, you definitely shouldn't do that, man.
Yeah, 10 to 14 hours a day every day, and then to go to a festival for pleasure, it's a little exhausting.
So for me, and this question from Ben was essentially favorite music festival that you still go to yearly. My favorite is definitely Riot Fest. So for my personal experience, I have gone to Warped Tour. The first time I went to Warped Tour, and that was the first festival I'd ever gone to, was 2008. Then I didn't go in 2009, maybe. That's a lie, maybe. But I did start going to Bamboozle for 3 years in a row, the last 3 years of the festival. And following that, I started going to Warped Tour for every year. And then I've been to the first two Skate and Surfs, and I've also been to Riot Fest the last 2 years. So I kind of went from no festivals in my life to about 3 a year, which I think is maybe I feel like maybe 2 a year is an average for most people that go to musical things, not even necessarily in our scene. I feel like someone might go to, is it called Electric Daisy Carnival?
Yes.
And then also Governor's Ball or Coachella and something else. There are many music festivals now for many groups of people, which I think is cool. Maybe some other time Jesse and I will talk more. There's been a lot of articles recently because it's music festival season about the economy of music festivals. But my favorite, the best festival, one of the best weekends of my entire life was the first year I went to Riot Fest in 2013. It was just so fun. As someone that typically goes to shows alone, not because I don't have any friends, but because
Sure, that's it.
I mean, that was definitely why at the beginning. But I got I don't know. It's interesting to me. Most people I talk to don't like going to shows if they can't go with someone.
Oh, really? Most of my life, I go alone, but then I know a lot of people there.
Okay, so but like for me growing up in New York, no one, as we've talked about at length, like no one I knew liked this music, you know. So I just would always go alone, and
I made all my friends from people I'd meet at those shows.
Oh, I have very bad social skills, Jesse.
You don't have bad.
I mean,
social skills.
I did though.
Okay, you are better now.
Yeah, but but yeah, so Riot Fest. I went with a group of friends, and I didn't really know what it would be like because I'd never done something like that before. And it was an incredible time. Like the music was great. It was great. We did a DJ night. It was fun. And Riot Fest was the best run festival I had ever been to as well. And so Riot Fest is my favorite. But I like festivals. I like skate and surf, even though sometimes it's messy. This year should be fun. Warped Tour is as much fun as it isn't, just because, as Jesse was saying, the long days, the heat, the pavement. But,
the heat.
But I wouldn't trade going to Warped Tour for anything because it feels like a centering place to me. And I a lot of people wish like Warped Tour was gone, and if Warped Tour is gone, we'd all be in a lot of trouble, I think. But that's neither here nor there. But
well, I will say this, that when I look at a lineup and I'm like, which fest would I like to go to? It's definitely Riot Fest.
Yeah.
It's that I'm too socially exhausted by hearing loud music to do those festivals. And this isn't, what I wanted to say before is I've been this way for about 12 years. I was nearly your age when I got sick of them. I just can't do it. I just, like, socially and longevity of blowing my ears out, I can't do it.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely, like, it's exhausting, you know?
Yeah.
And because you're like, you've decided that you're going to just destroy your body for that weekend, you know? Like that's I just don't know how you don't do that otherwise. Like, so Friday, the first day of Riot Fest, Friday, we get into Chicago, and we're like, let's go to Chicago Diner, which is this famous like vegan diner chain in Chicago. We go, we all get like vegan wings, fries, Bloody Marys at like 12 in the afternoon. The festival doesn't start until like 5, and we've already destroyed ourselves, you know. And we had to go back to the hotel, take a nap, and then it was raining and muddy, and it's like, let's do this for 3 days. And I'm really glad we did, as always. But there's just no way to like go out unscathed.
It's true.
It's hard.
It's a little too much rock unless you got that young spirit that's ready to party all night long and get high off that music.
Sometimes I wish I was more of a white girl, more than I already am.
You know, when I first heard you say that, I thought you said wigger, and I was really disturbed. I was like, all right, edit this podcast. Wow.
Did you like, some people really liked our tweets last night, Jesse, about Bon Iver and drinking and brunches.
Yes.
Those two things just seem connected to me. But anyway, from @Carlos Aviles, can you guys give any insight on record label contracts? Any information would be helpful. Are you trying to sell out, Carlos?
Definitely.
Jesse will not think you're DIY.
I mean, the second you sign a record label, you're obviously not DIY anymore.
Yeah. All right. Let's try to hit this in an educational way.
Mm-hmm.
We can say that there are tiers to different kinds of record contracts. Jesse, I'm going to list 3. You let me know if you think there should be more. 50-50 deal, a PPD deal, and a 360 deal.
Sure.
Okay. We'll go through each one a little bit. So a 50-50 deal is where, let me give you just an example. We'll do an example for each of these. Pick a band for me.
Well, the only one that's coming to my mind is The Devil Wears Prada with Rise.
Well, okay, so all Bad Timing Records signings are 50-50 deals. Let's go with Kevin Devine.
Oh, yeah. And so, you know, famously, back in the day, All Fat Records and Epitaph ones used to be 50-50 deals.
Bad Timing,
this is a thing of the past, obviously.
Yeah. Bad Timing is a 50-50 label. Run for Cover is. Top Shelf is. I believe No Sleep is. They're kind of like the smaller punker labels. I just call myself punk. So Bad Timing Records does 50-50 deals. We have signed Kevin Devine, and we are reissuing his Brother's Blood LP. Or let's just say Brother's Blood is a new LP. Bad Timing Records assumes the cost for the recording of the album. So if Kevin is recording with Jesse Cannon and Jesse charges $5,000, Bad Timing Records pays for those $5,000 of recording, mixing and mastering. We then own that music either forever or for an agreed upon time. Bad Timing Records has now also assumed the cost of production, of manufacturing for the music. That means vinyl CDs, for promotion, like a music video or a publicist, and any advertising and anything like that.
Or tour support,
or
if
tour
there's some
support.
sort of buy-in to the tour for whatever.
So if the recording costed $5,000, with everything else that I just mentioned, we could have also spent upwards of another $10,000. So let's just say we've spent $15,000 on this project on date X. So we're going to release the record. If we release the record and it sells $2,000 worth of music, in 6 months when we account for royalties, if we've only made $2,000, but we've spent a total of $15,000, Kevin Devine will not see anything on his royalties yet because that release is still $13,000 in debt. However, if the record in 6 months has made $20,000 and there's $5,000 worth of product with a 50-50 deal, Kevin Devine profit. Kevin Devine would see $2,500 and Bad Timing Records would see $2,500. Does that adequately assess that situation for you?
I think that's a great way of explaining it to a layman.
Okay. So the next kind of deal is a PPD, which traditionally stands for published price to dealers. And with PPD, it's typically dramatically under a 50-50 deal in terms of the percentage. But often an artist can see more money in different areas. So with a 50-50 deal, an artist needs to recoup for the label all costs, like we just talked about. Production, manufacturing, publicity, etc. But with the PPD, the artist recoups money based off of the actual music sold, not necessarily all of the nitty gritty. So a lot of labels like Rise, Epitaph, Hopeless, etc. use PPD because it's not really, because of the amount of money that Hopeless put up for a release, their explanation to you would be that they can't afford to give you a 50-50 deal if they have 15 employees that will work for you at any time and hire out to better companies for publicity. However, you might see a higher return on 14% of the music sold than you would 50% of music sold at a smaller label like Bad Timing Records. So it's a little confusing because every label does it differently. And depending on what contract you get or what size band you get, one label might offer you 12% PPD and another might offer you 18% PPD. It depends on your negotiating standpoint. The highest percentage you can get is the best percentage possible, basically. And again, royalties are typically 2 to 4 times a year, depending on label. The third type of record deal, and one that no one should ever sign, is a 360 deal. A 360 deal is where labels see portions of your revenue from all revenue streams: music, touring, merchandise, and maybe some other stuff. So traditionally, it's a job of the label to sell music, to make money off of music, and to give a part of its earnings from that music to the artist. When the music industry, quote unquote, died and jumped into a river, which it didn't do, labels said, "Oh my God, we can't be signing bands to a $10 million contract. We got to make more money. Bands, you tour, give us some of that money. Bands, you sell merch, give us some of that money." And so, because bands were in a bind, they started taking this deal. So I assume whoever asked this may be in a situation where they're not going to be on a 360 deal on a level of a Warner Records. But let's just say you're working with a smaller label. For music in a 360 deal, it starts from day one. You're never going to see money recouped on your music until you recoup it. You're never going to see royalties until you recoup it.
Some would argue in most of these deals that you're never going to really see the money because they're spending so much money. And this is what I should say. I wanted to correct you that when you said no one should ever sign one of these, pop stars should sign these because if you're doing pop, you're so interchangeable and they're going to put you with producers and songwriters who are going to put you through a machine that makes a hit. And as long as usually you're pretty enough. You're, have some sort of personality. You get with the right songwriters and they give you the right stroke of luck of you getting the budget poured into this. You're going to have some fame and hopefully leverage this with some endorsements and other things, and you're going to make some money for yourself. But I don't think when you're going to be one of those people where it really is the lottery, like whereas with bands, it's this chemistry and it's this thing of having the right thing. But once you're one of those people who's just writing with songwriters all day and then working with producers all day, yeah, take the 360 deal because you obviously want to be famous. And the only way you're getting there is if you take the 360 deal because they know they can do this with 1,000 other people who are good looking and can hit high notes just like you.
Okay, you're right.
I mean, that's usually how it goes.
Jesus.
You're killing it. Keep going.
Okay, so a 360 deal for sub pop star level people. So let's just say the three streams of revenue are music, touring, and merchandise. From day one, music the typical royalty deal will take place for music. So if the project was $15,000 to produce and manufacture, once you recoup on that $15,000, you will likely start seeing money. But with merchandise and touring, it's usually not from day one. So how I've seen it in deals offered to bands I've worked with that we've turned down has been if band X sells $100,000 worth of merch online, gross, then label Y will begin taking a cut of that merch. If band X grosses over X dollars on a tour, label Y will take a cut of that tour revenue. We on the same page? We good?
Yeah, you're killing it.
Okay. So that is often icky because many labels, if you offer me a band and I'm a hot band, but I'm really still small, like the potential's there, but it's not succeeded yet. If a label offers you, hey, we're only going to start taking merch money once you guys have sold $100,000 worth of goods, like $100,000, that's a big number. Yeah. And so, sure, like we're never going to get there. Guess what? If you're a hot band and the label that you signed to is the right label, you're going to get there potentially really quickly, like within a year maybe. And then a portion of what you make forever will go to that label for merchandise. And by the way, if you're never going to see money from the music you make, you damn well better see all the money from the music and touring you make, from the merch and touring you make, aside from your manager or something like that. So those are the three kinds of deals. 360 deals are tough because they strangle the artist from multiple sides, but labels that do 360 deals that I've spoken with and have deplored have said, hey, we do as much as we can. We deserve to see more money. And to me, my response is, your job is to make sure the music sells well. My merch company's job is to make sure the merch sells well. My band's job is to make sure the tour goes well. You shouldn't be getting my merch and my touring rights. Not to prop anyone up or throw anyone under the bus, but Rise Records doesn't do 360 deals. And I was surprised when I first found that out. And I said, why not? And they say, we don't sell merch or tour. Your bands do. And I've always thought that was very admirable.
Well, it's also smart on their part because the other thing is just like if you were working a job as a suit, they need to compensate you well to motivate you. Like, just as they say, like, to bring it to the economy right now, is like they talk about Costco, how Costco pays its workers best and they have the lowest turnover, so they're not retraining people and they get a higher productivity out of people and their workers because they actually pay them well. This is one of the main arguments for raising the minimum wage.
Do you like Costco?
I haven't lived in a place with a Costco in like so long.
My parents go to Costco or BJ's like every other weekend because of Jersey, you know?
Yeah. Did they go to the one in Wayne?
Costco all the time. They go to all of them.
Do our parents go to the same Costco?
Yeah, I think so. Oh my God. My dad and your dad have probably gotten into a fight in the aisles of Costco.
I think at least my father, I think, behaved enough to not get in political fights at Costco. Plus, Costco's a really liberal thing. Your father really shouldn't be shopping there. Just saying. The next question is for you, which is they're moving from Austin to Philly in the fall for college. Anything you wish you knew before moving there?
Yes. Philadelphia. Don't go west of 45th Street. Don't go north of Haverford Street. Don't get shot. Don't get stabbed either. Don't get a bike. Well, maybe get a bike, but if you're going to get a bike, make sure that you can bring it up to your dorm or inside somewhere, because if you lock it outside, dude, it's not a lock. You might as well just not even lock it. But in reality, I assume because you're listening to this show that you like punk music. So go to r5productions.com, sign up for their newsletter. They do a lot of great shows. Keep an eye out for the Fire, for the Barbary. A lot of smaller, cool bands play there. The best food place is El Camino. It's my favorite. And if you're vegan or veggie, go to Hip City Veg, New Harmony, Blackbird Pizzeria. If you like big-ass pizza, go to Lorenzo's next to the TLA.
I will sign for Lorenzo's, being that the only reason Philly's in the pizza belt is Lorenzo's.
It's kind of crazy. So anyone who's just curious, you should Google Lorenzo's Pizza Philadelphia. The pizza is about, one average slice of pizza. So you take one average slice of real world pizza. One Lorenzo's slice is 2.5 of those. Would you say that's accurate?
But you know that they stole this from Hoboken Pizza, right?
Jesse, doesn't matter.
Does matter because the Hoboken slices are the same size.
Okay. So what I'll say about Lorenzo's and that size of pizza, if I'm walking out of a show from the TLA and I want a big fucking slice of pizza, it doesn't even need to be good. But the thing is, Lorenzo's pizza is really good.
It is.
And it just happens to be so big that you're set. And so, yeah, I recommend those things. And just in general with Philly, learn to like to walk if you're from Austin. I don't know if you can really walk in Austin.
Can you walk in Austin? Yeah, okay. Totally.
Philly's great for walking. You're going to like it. Just it might take a minute. There's a lot of music. There's more venues than anywhere.
We should probably also say that the subway is not really a real subway.
It's awful. But if he lives in Austin, this is going to be a godsend for him, I imagine.
No, that's true.
This was my thing. When I went to Drexel freshman year, and I was suddenly with people from the horrible state of Florida and other places in the country. They were all like, "Oh my God, the subway! There's a bus, there's a trolley. I can't believe you can get around so easily." And I said, "You should go to New York. This is terrible." So the subway system is kind of whack, but also, it's there. So Philly's okay. Jesse, this one's definitely not for me.
Yep.
From Fallout Guy 78. Wait, this isn't for Jesse either. Jeez. Is a preamp configured setup better than one with a receiver for a turntable, or both just as good?
It can be just as good. It depends on what two you're comparing. In general, though, an isolated preamp that matches your turntable, all the companies, for example, so if you get a Project or a Music Hall, they all have their own preamps that match with them, and those can be a good idea to get. But you can, in a receiver, there can be great phono preamps too. Particularly Sanyo, I remember, has a really good one in theirs. So,
well, I should also say, in general, if you're looking to buy a record player, you should Google Property of Zach. If you're looking for a new record player, here is your guide by Jesse Cannon from January of 2015, and it will take you to the right places.
This is true.
That's what we call a shout out to my own business.
A plug. So the next question comes from somebody named Wish I Was Thomas, as we've joked about before. What's the process and the legal requisites for using an audio clip from a movie-TV show in a song?
Well, the real answer is don't do it.
Here's the answer. It ain't happening. You don't have the money to do it. You have to get a license from them, and they're going to charge you so much money that you would basically be paying so much money for that license that you'll never make the money back. Now, if you're a tiny little punk band...
Here we go.
If you're a tiny little punk band, you're not going to press this on vinyl, most likely. You want to just do some underground release. A lot of hip-hop, like when they do this, for example, they do white label vinyls where they just literally stamp the vinyl and they don't put an address on it so they can never get sued. Then they let it leak to the internet and, it's whatever. But yeah, you're not going to be able to afford to do this, and you're never going to be able to. When you hear records that are with this, it's because they didn't do it, for one. They didn't get permission, for one. For two, it might be so old that it was before it was being enforced. Like you hear a lot of 90s hardcore records with these samples on them.
Keep getting them checks. Don't get sued.
Yeah, don't get sued.
Hi, guys. I was hoping you could maybe talk about apps you use to stay organized while working. I've started writing reviews and articles for various websites, and keeping track of deadlines is making my head hurt. Also, Zach, any cool tips for coming up with features? Oh, Jesse, this is a great Zach Zerillo question.
I was gonna say this one's right up you and I's alley, but you're gonna go so long on this.
My phone is open. It's not because I'm not paying attention to Jesse. It's because I am being productive. Okay. For mail management, sometimes for those who are trying to write features or need to remember that, hey, I've got to do an interview at this time, let's make sure it pops back into my mailbox so I can get all pertinent information. I use a mail app called Mailbox. It handles mail just like anything else, but you can bounce messages to return to you at any specific time or a week from now, next week, next weekend. It's great. And everything I'm talking about is going to be either iOS or OS X related. There's a Mac client as well in beta. For Twitter, look, Twitter's important. You know, I like to tweet. I like to tweet with Jesse.
It's true.
But I'm what you would call a pro user of Twitter. What would you call yourself, Jesse? You have 2 Twitter accounts.
I mean, I technically have 5 on my tweet deck.
I have a lot too, but
yeah.
Jesse is such a celebrity that he has 2 Twitter accounts with the same name.
It's because the kids don't like reading about me making fun of Chris Christie on the one account and hearing about all the delicious things I eat across New York all day.
I just heard my dad say to my mom, "Can I get a Twitter so I can follow Jesse?"
Oh,
so as a pro level tweeter, I use an app called Tweetbot.
This is where we're getting similar.
Tweetbot is my favorite app I've ever used anywhere. It's my most used app. I love it.
Same.
I have some bad news for some listeners. A lot of what I'm going to talk about, I pay for apps. If you've never considered paying for an app because you find it ridiculous, if you use anything every day and you rely on it, you should be willing to pay for it, is my thought.
Pay $3 whole dollars for it? Yeah.
$3 whole. So for reading, if I like to read a lot.
So no, wait.
Oh,
hold on.
Sorry.
What do you use for your desktop Twitter though?
I use Tweetbot.
Oh, see, I use TweetDeck because I think it's way better.
Well, that's where we differ.
Well, I mean, you can make all these verticals. You can have the search for when people talk shit on your name on that vertical. You have all the @replies. You can see who's favoriting things.
A lot of people talk shit about me, and I see it. I see it all. Everyone that's about to tweet shit about me, I'll see it.
Yeah. So same for both of us. But I think TweetDeck's way better than Tweetbot's
on the Mac.
I use for Chrome.
Oh, interesting. Gotcha. Okay, so let's just say iOS for a second. For mail, I use Mailbox. For Twitter, I use Tweetbot. For podcast listening, I use an app called Overcast.
This is the same for both of us.
There's a work group app. So if you're in a team, the person that asked me this, actually, if anyone's in a team and you are remote and you work in the same office, but you work across the internet, you work across different cities, whatever. There's a great app called Slack where you can have where you have a channel basically for your team. So let's say Property of Zach. And in that channel, I can have little groups. So I can have one for Off the Record podcast. I can have one for the Brain Trust of 4 people that work for the site and so on. For Bad Timing Records, I have one for the Bad Timing Records team. And in there, we have a channel specifically for releases, for mail order, for press. So we can keep conversations going. We can search for things that we said 3 months ago, etc. So I use Slack for communications with my team. I use an app called Todoist for my to-do list. Previously, I used Wunderlist, and I definitely recommend that as well. But Todoist is great if you have multiple projects that you work on or multiple companies that you do work with. Big fan of Todoist. For notes, it's been a very hard and long process for me to get into to find a good note-taking app that I like. I like Evernote in theory, but it's too clunky for me. I used this incredible app called Simple Note for a long time, but it was a little too sparse. And it sounds very strange for me to say this, but I settled on a Microsoft app.
No.
Yep. Microsoft is really getting their shit together right now. It's very strange. And I use an app called OneNote by Microsoft, and it's the best thing I've found that where I can break up all my different businesses and then the projects within those businesses, and also have good things like all the proper text editing and photo sharing and blah 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 in there. And then for my calendar app, and then maybe this is a good place to end my iOS list to go on to Jesse. But for a calendar app, I use a calendar called Fantastical. What's really great about it is that it uses natural language processing. So in Fantastical, I can type podcast with Jesse 2 p.m. tomorrow. I just type it in and it fills in all the fields for me, and then I'm done. All calendar apps, you typically have to say lunch meeting with Jesse, and then you have to go granularly and select all your dates and times and calendars, and Fantastical just does this for you, and it's great. Anything from you to keep productive on your phone?
Yeah, I'm very similar to you. I also use Instapaper to. I can not usually read the articles I want to read when I see them on Twitter or whatever. So I send them to Instapaper for when I have time.
Yeah, let me explain that. Let me explain Read It Later a little bit more, because I think it's really great and no one really does it. I think most normal people, don't use a Read It Later app. So if you're reading Property of Zach, because I'm giving myself a little shout outs today, and you see an article from Jesse and you're like, damn, I'm on my way to school or I'm on my way into a meeting, I can't read this right now, but you don't want to forget about it. You should read it at some point. So what you should do is you should download an app called Instapaper or Pocket. You can save all these articles. You just save the link into the app, and you can do that now on iOS with extensions on iOS 8, which is really great. So you don't even have to go into the app to save it. And then later, when you have some free time on the train or before bed or on a Saturday before you go out to a drunk brunch, you can pop open your app, and these apps are available on iPad, iPhone, the Mac, on the web, etc. And you can just read all your articles, and it's great.
Yeah, so I really like that. I use the Apple Reminders app for my reminders because I particularly like... Well, there's a really good reason, because the other ones don't do this as well, is that Apple has a particular function in the reminders that it'll remind you when you get somewhere to do something.
Very true.
I bounce from work to home and I never remember what I have to do at the two. I do that. I literally have I have locations for the liquor store, for the grocery store, for the music store.
I love you.
Yeah, I mean, I have that, and you know that until the other apps are good at that, I will never switch from the Todoist.
I will say Todoist is now really good at that, but
it's funny. I tried that before, and I tried Any To Do this weekend, and I gave up on Any To Do after about 3 days. I also, funny enough though, when I'm at work, I keep a handwritten to-do list.
I sometimes do that.
Because you know what I find is the best is I put on that to-do list anything I have to do before the day ends or that I'm going to put on the list tomorrow. And it makes me remember them a little bit better, I think. And I can just write it down really fast. Like, perfect example is you said something that reminded me before. I can just write it down. So that's my one analog thing. I like Slack. I use Pocket for a different purpose than what I use Instapaper for. So I save Pocket for all the cool things that aren't reading that I want to do later. So, for example, I see a couch that I would like to own one day. I throw that in my Pocket. I see a YouTube
that's basically
video.
It's your Pinterest, really.
Yeah, I keep it segregated because I wouldn't want my Pinterest to be public or anything, too. Because then people would see what a yuppie I am and how not punk I am. So I use that for that, and that's pretty much my... I will say this, that my biggest productivity tool, though, is a multi-layered Gmail inbox with Boomerang. So I do multiple inbox function on Gmail, which is something you could set in the preferences, and then I do inbox 0, so I'm always answering the emails, but then I have a bunch of tags that are my other inboxes that are when I should do with something. So, for example, if I star something, it's then sitting in a thing for me to remember and keep this in my mind because it'll be on my screen that I have to do this, but I'm not going to do it right now. And then the other ones are filed away for when I should do it. And then I will use this app called Boomerang to do what Zach said with Mailbox, which is send things back to me in 2 weeks if I need to remember it, etc.
Did you know we're nerdy?
Yeah, I think anybody who's listened to more than one episode of this knows that we're nerds and that we're both have way too many jobs to stay on ours. I'm going to try this OneNote thing though because I have the same problem.
OneNote's really great. I'll send you some screenshots just about why it's useful for me. Like
Yeah.
I went from Evernote to Simple Note, which is truly like you can't bold stuff. Like there's no like it's so sparse.
I tried Simple Note. I think I saw you and Jason tweeting about it like a week or two ago, and I tried it for 10 minutes and I gave up.
I used it for a long time, and I love it, but it's some I needed more, and so OneNote has been oddly successful for me.
Yeah, because Evernote, my problem too is that I lose stuff all the time because the syncing's bad.
Right. This is good. So I'll send this to you after the show. But two other things. I use an app. If anyone's in school and needs like a good homework tracking app, I'd recommend iStudies with the Z Pro. The name is awful, but I've used it every year that I've been in college, and it's been good. Also, I talk to people on Facebook a lot. But I don't like Facebook Messenger, but I'm not trying to be on Facebook all day or ever. So I have an app called Goofy, where it's basically just a windowed Facebook Messenger client on my desktop. That's very helpful for me. And I use iMessage all day to talk to people. Whew, that felt fun. I might have to write about this on the site.
You know, I spent like 20 minutes the other day going through the Lifehacker version of this because I'm traveling a bunch this summer and I wanted to get a new backpack and a backpack organizer. So I settled on a Herschel like the hipster I am, and a.
Oh my God! Did you get it at Urban Outfitters?
I ordered it on Amazon. Thank you very much. And then I got a Grit-It. Do you know what this is?
I think I do.
Yeah. So if you listeners don't know, a Grit-It is a whole bunch of elastic straps on a board so that you can put like your charger and everything up to it and your bag doesn't become a mess when you travel, which is something that makes me insane.
Yeah. Traveling is tough. I have a method, but everyone should have their own travel method, and you should all get good at it.
For how neurotic and disorganized you can handle
I
yourself.
recommend to everyone that you sit hard and long and you think of a list of anything you ever need when you travel. You put that in an app, and you make sure that you have all of those things every time.
Mm-hmm.
And then you uncheck it, and then you do it all over again. God damn it.
I have that. I have a Google Doc of that.
We're disasters as people.
No, we're
so good at this granular stuff. We should just I know we can't get paid for it, but if we could just do this all day, just make packing lists.
Do you want to become life coaches for people and teach them how to do this? Life coaches for pug kids?
We've got it now.
yeah. There's a real money making.
It's a bummer we're never allowed to release this episode because they'll see how we found this idea.
Jeez. So the next question somebody had was.
Oh wait, really one quick.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a second part of this question, which was also Zach. Any cool tips for coming up with features? I would say, what do you like to read? What would you like to read that you haven't been able to find anywhere? And I know those sound like really vague questions, but the answers to those questions are the features that you should come up with for your own website.
More than that too, though, you know how I come up with most of them? Like the article we were talking about that I'm going to do for you is when I see everybody saying something, but I know something else to be true, or I see people not saying something that I've discovered, you just got to find that. That Venn diagram is the easiest thing.
We can't all be as smart as Jesse Cannon.
That's not true. There's tons of people who see that every day. I talk to people all the time who say things, and I'm like, you should write about that. You see that. Everybody has a Venn diagram of information that they get from somebody else, unless you're totally illiterate and don't read and you only listen to podcasts where guys go on about apps. You can usually find something that you're seeing that not everybody else is saying.
So, this is an interesting question. I like this one. I would spend money on a streaming service that was kind of MySpacey, but with more of a focus on live shows. I wish I could pick and choose which genre shows I get invited to or not. Raves states away. That's all I get. If someone gets it to work and it actually takes off, you can have event pages and people actually use the data that's obtained could be really useful with tours. Sorry, that is long.
That's funny. It's like, I wonder if somebody was building something like that.
Jesse, what if I could ask you you're a citizen of New York, Is that an accurate statement?
That is, unless you're reading my tax return.
Huh. Same? Oh, no. I am New York. Okay. So if you were to go to your Facebook events right now and you had to scroll past the last 30 that you've declined, do you think the average events that you've been invited to would be in New York?
Yes, Zach, because as I've discussed with you a million times on the Twitter machine, what I do when I make a new friend with somebody, and the only times I got a little behind on this in the last week, because for some reason I made like 100 new friends on Facebook recently. They changed their algorithm.
I don't add anyone on Facebook anymore. I'm done with people. I'm done with friends.
I'm sure the world is relieved.
I've defriended you.
Yeah. When I make friends with somebody, I make a decision whether I'm turning off their invites or not. And that's basically comes down to, do they live near me, and do I even know who this person is, or is it just some weirdo who read my book and is now friending me and they're from Idaho or whatever, because I don't want their invite.
Yesterday, I was invited to a EDM show in Berlin.
Nice.
So what I would say about this question is, like, this kind of sounds cool, but if you're looking just for to be notified frequently of shows and to be able to act on them, like just in general, like if anyone hasn't heard of Bands in Town, it's a really good service where they pick up the artists you like via Facebook likes, or you can input them. And so if you like Blink-182 on Facebook and Blink-182 announces a show with Matt Skiba, you'll get an email only when it's around you. So if they announce 4 shows in California and you live in New Jersey, they won't email you. But if they announce a show in Philadelphia, Connecticut, and Maryland, they'll tell you.
There's also cool. Songkick who does this as well. And Bandpage does it too.
That's accurate. The 2 most popular bands in towns and Songkick.
At that though, I don't
need any more social networks in my life.
But what we should say though is Bandpage is important for bands to update, because you know what Bandpage does is it puts it in the Google search results.
Ooh, and that's important.
That is. So our next question. You know, that last one was kind of a statement, huh?
That was a statement. God, people,
it was a good statement.
People, you can't state it as only questions.
I just started an LLC for my band, and as we're picking up some steam and wanting to keep a better eye on finances and avoid keeping all our money in cash in members' personal bank accounts, I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed by the process. Could you give some tips on running a small, growing business that doesn't have traditional employees? Our main focus right now is having a bank account from which we can pay for merch orders, gas, and gas on the road. And this is from Austin.
My God, LLCs.
Awful.
I'm in the thick of 2 new ones right now, and they're rough, guys. Awful. Give me your money. I need to read this very quickly again. I'm trying to feel. Could you give us some tips on running a small, growing business?
You read it. I'll start answering.
Okay.
There's an app called FreshBooks. That's your first good friend. That's the best accounting software, I guess you would call it, that I know of. I used to use one called SkyClerk, but FreshBooks is definitely way better and an huge improvement in that format. As far as getting a bank account, go find a low-interest bank that doesn't have high fees for when you guys inevitably mess up because you're in a band and you don't know how to be responsible. TD Bank North particularly has low fees, which is why I use them, even though I haven't bounced a check in like God knows how many years. I like to support a bank that's also good to its customers, and I think TD is very good to them. AKA, don't use Chase or Skank of America.
I use Bank of America, and I
great job, Zach. Great job.
I would recommend Bank of America to anyone.
Really? Why do you recommend Bank of America?
I've never had a bad experience.
Aside from when they almost toppled our country with their bad business practices, but that's a different story. Oh Jesus!
You just have a hernia?
Yeah, it's just like something in my throat. It's just this liberal socialist that lives inside me.
Look, here's the deal. All banks are awful.
It's true. Credit unions are good, but they're inconvenient.
Yeah, this is the thing. For me, Bank of America is widespread throughout the country, and so that's good for bands on tour when they need to deposit cash. Fight me.
Yeah, no,
fight me, you socialist.
There is a lot of truth to that. What's good about Bank of America is you can deposit just about anywhere in America,
and they will take they want your money everywhere. What did you say?
It's true. And I said the same could be said for Chase.
Oh God. Okay, I thought you said the same. Wow, I just heard something so different, Jesse. I heard the same couldn't be said for Grease.
Oh, jeez.
We've both said not harsh things today.
Misheard bad things today.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good to know.
But yeah, you just get a bank under your business. Now that you're an LLC, you have a tax ID and you can open a business account, and then you don't have to put it in personal accounts. That's the whole reason you got an LLC.
And as we've talked about in the past, what's very important about LLC is if you unfortunately get sued or in an accident, everyone is covered together and safe together, versus one member being vulnerable or all members being vulnerable to a lawsuit.
So nice. So with that, the next one is
from Jack MEB, who's Jack Appleby, a listener to the show and a friend of the show. A topic I'm curious about: what causes a streaming subscriber to change services? Do people bounce? Jesse, you've always been a Rdio faithfulist, right?
I've tried to leave Rdio, but I keep coming back to my original squeeze. Like it's like, you know, when you date a girl all through high school and then you just keep coming back to her or something. Like
first loves, man, they're tough.
What causes me? Well, I know what causes. I interview people about this all day because it's what I'm concerned with in life. And I think what's very interesting, one of the biggest complaints I hear from people, and is that they get mad with the way services, when they lose a part of catalog, how they screw up their playlists. But Spotify has recently got really good with doing that, whereas Rdio and Beats are supposedly terrible with this. But I don't know that I know any factual data to pass on about this, but I know for me is that I just don't think these services have come into maturity yet, and I'd like to see them get better.
Yeah, for me, well, first of all, like, look, all these services except 1% have the same music catalog. Like, I don't think that's currently a valuable thing. Like, I think Spotify has some more music than Rdio does. I don't
know how true that is. I think that really every aggregator is all going to the same ones.
I agree, except by major choice. So, like, Beats has Taylor Swift's back catalog. Spotify doesn't. Like, except those large choices, like if that's going to be your make or break, that would be a reason I think people change. But to me, it's just, if you like playlists and you're really into collaborating with your friends and seeing what your friends are listening to, then I think Spotify is why someone would switch to Spotify, right? Like Spotify, like my friend Eric, who manages Modern Baseball, like we were talking at the office for 2 hours, and every 10 minutes revolved around, man, how many of my friends are listening to Modern Baseball or to Knuckle Puck or to Modest Mouse? It was really interesting to see that 50 of Eric's friends listened to Brand New in the past week, and 15 had listened to Sea Haven, for example, something like that. You know, that was interesting. If you're someone that's very social and likes to find music socially, that's for you. For me, I don't care about what Jesse Cannon listens to, honestly. Until he tells me, until when he recommends me a movie and I watch it 2 months later. I just frankly, like, I'm sure that's definitely interesting to me, but I care more about the experience of the app, if it works the way I want to. And I think those are like the two separate kind of camps. There's also the third camp that just doesn't care and wants to just stream music, and whoever they found out about first, they'll use that, and whatever's cheapest, they'll use that. To me, I haven't found a service that does what I want yet. Maybe the Apple service will, maybe not. But curation, I guess, would also be the other large one, and that's what Beats and Apple will be selling on most likely. I also don't want to be curated to. I don't like playlists. I like listening to albums. I'm a freak.
You know what I like on Spotify that I don't get on Rdio? Some of my favorite musicians now keep a playlist of their favorite songs.
I like that too. Dan from Real Friends does that, and I've told him many times I think it's very smart. I've said, like, I know you're not doing this for like business reasons, but I think it's really cool, and I think it's a great way to show your fans and the people that follow you music that you think should get more exposed more, basically. And I think that's really cool.
It's funny. I keep two of them on Rdio. I keep a pop one and then a punk one. But like real punk, I try not to put like pop punk on it and stuff that's like obvious. Like I try to put like what my old friends who still want to hear good punk rock like we listened to when we were young. I do one. I think that's one of the coolest things, and one of the things I think will make another big difference in who goes to where these playlists are, because whoever can harness this the best is gonna really take over.
So this is from Christina. Zach, as someone who works for Synergy Management, what do you know about smaller bands opening? Smaller opening bands are approved to play bigger bills. My friend's band was being looked at to open for Super Heaven and Roswell Kid on Long Island, and I'm just curious, what exactly is management looking for when a baby band's submitted for approval? So there's actually a few things to this. There's a few different tiers of how this would work. So sometimes booking agents and bands on touring acts do not let any locals on. This would typically be a case when a band has reached like a 500 to 1,000 level capacity room. They don't need any locals, so unless they have a friend in town that they want to play their show, there's not going to be any locals. If a band's playing smaller rooms like the Studio Webster Hall and they need some help, typically 0 to 50 tickets to be sold, promoters will typically add 1 or 2 locals to the bill. And how this happens is 2 steps. Either one, management and the band's headlining do not care about the locals and let the promoters pick whoever they think will draw the best. 2, the bands that are playing the tour may care and may request to see all the bands that have submitted to play locally and then approve or deny them. So those are the typical 2 ways. For Synergy, I honestly have no idea what Super Heaven decided to do. I would imagine that it's a Jake Zimmerman show in Long Island, and he just picked whatever bands he thought would bring the most to the show. And ultimately, for the headlining bands, like, they just want to sell more tickets so they can get more people in the door and to have a healthier tour.
Well, let's also say this. I think it's very uncommon that the management is who's doing the approving for the local.
Very uncommon.
I think what's much more the ultimate common is that the promoters choosing it. The second most common is that the band knows a local band that they like, that they want to throw on a show, or their cousin wants to get on it or something, or just their old roadies band or something like that. That's the most common way you see a random local on a show. But the management choosing it, I mean, I will be honest, I think in the time I managed Man Overboard and Transit, the 2 times I was asked that, it was always funny because it would be this thing of that they were like, we were told you would say yes to this. The booking agent would say it to me. And I'm like, and usually, of course, I think was they both times, I had never heard of these people. They just knew my name and were being fucking dicks.
Everyone's a dick.
That's how it goes. And you know who didn't play the show because they lied?
You.
Yes. Well, I never play the show because my remix band doesn't play shows.
Oh, my God. You're going to keep haunting me with this. Like, Jesse, be straight with me. If I, put some real time into Google, you know what?
I don't think you could find it. I don't think you could find it.
For our loyal...
Does not have my name anywhere near it. You would never find it.
For our loyal listeners, please hashtag tell OTR if you want to do some digging work and find Jesse's remix project. I promise you he will quit this show if you do. I'm okay with it. Jesse, do you have any recommendations for us this week?
Going to recommend 2 very self-promotional things, which is I produced some great new stuff with a band called Hayana. They have a single that just premiered over on Nylon, and you can hear it on their SoundCloud or their Facebook. And then I worked with another band called Franchise, which is one of my favorite heavy records I've ever done. It really came out great. I think they're really heavy in a unique way, kind of like Touche Amore or something. Poison the Well. Yes, whatever. I never get that because I've heard it pronounced both ways. Like when you say the real word, not the band name.
Yes, but just trust me on this one.
Okay. I'm just saying. I feel like that one's up in the air. But anyway, yeah, I recommend those 2.
Lovely. I will recommend 2 albums that are not currently out, but for people to pay attention for singles and to check out the albums when they are out. One is Pale Horses by Me Without You. It's a really phenomenal record. That's out on 6/16. The other is Real Stories of True People Who Kind of Look Like Monsters by a very small band called Oso. 2 completely different records, both very good. That's it for this week. Thank you for listening. If you want to keep up with us, subscribe to us on iTunes, Rate us on iTunes so Jesse will be less of a socialist. All these things are possible. You can find links at offtherecord.fm. Thank you, and we will be back next week.